We did $40 million in a single year, and I was running the sales team. When I made money, I spent money fast. I bought the fancy stuff, I bought the big houses, I bought the nice cars. So the amount of content and repurposing that went online was just insane. There's also a lot of power that comes to being the loudest in what you do. And maybe you're not the best, but the market doesn't care because you're the loudest.
This is the Content Capitalists Podcast. We talk to business owners who've used video to grow their businesses to $1 million a year or more. How they did it, what worked, what didn't. Welcome to the Content Capitalists with your host, Ken Okazaki.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Content Capitalist Podcast, where I have conversations with people who are crushing it in their businesses. Now, today I have a guest with me, and full disclosure, also working with me in the project called Go Box Studio. But the more I got to know him, the more I realized he needs to come on the show because the history he has with making multiple 8 figures in sales in his previous project is something that I think the listeners are going to be really excited about, and also very closely tied to a very notorious and famous name that I think 99.999% of the listeners will be very familiar with. We're going to unpack it, what was awesome, maybe some stuff that wasn't awesome, and all the details in between, and how that ties to more money in your bank. Joel, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ken, thanks for having me. Super pumped to be here. Let's get it.
Awesome. Now, Joel, when we first met, I remember I saw you across the room, just like, and I'm all the way in Florida, flew in from Tokyo. And, you know, I'm like, I think there's a term, it's kind of derogatory, but I don't really care. People call me, they call Asians monkeys, you know, like when there's,
Really?
you know, yeah, like yellow
I
monkey,
thought
right?
Monkeys are for a different color of people.
Really? What color is that? Like black, you mean?
Yeah.
No,
That's what
they call us yellow monkeys, right?
Really?
I don't know.
Okay.
I've heard this like from American servicemen and stuff when
Oh, wow.
when they're trying to curse you.
I've
or
only
something.
heard things like chink and stuff like that.
Chink. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyhow, the thing is that all this racist stuff doesn't actually bother us so much as, like, I don't know, some races are more sensitive than others, and
For sure.
I'll give them that. We're not. This is not going to be a political talk show, but so we're gonna cut that conversation off right there. But I saw you across the room, just like, hey, there's my Asian brother. Obviously, we hadn't met. I wanted to meet you, and then when we got to talking over lunch, I was just like, dude, I think there's a lot more to unpack here. And you started telling me about your past. Now, we are working together, but could you give us a brief rundown on what you're doing, right, that gave you that experience with dealing with really big numbers in your business?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, I would have to say, same thing. When I was at that mastermind, it was actually my first time at the board of advisors, right? I just joined 3 weeks prior. And I was looking around the room. My wife's Asian, I'm Asian. And then there you go. I saw another Asian guy. I was like, hey, I have to talk to my Asian bro from another mom, right? So we hit it off. It went great. That's when I told you about my story, actually, how I got my start. And when I said the name, you were like, oh, that's a really, that's a very well-known name, but it might cut good, it might cut bad, right? Depending who hears the name. And so I got my start as head of sales for a gentleman who's also Asian called Dan Lok. Now, Dan Lok, whether you like him or hate him, I think we can all agree that we respect the numbers he's built on social media, the numbers he's put in for his business and his life, right? I think he's done a lot of sales. Most people would agree he is one of the 3 OGs when it comes to internet marketing. Back in 2018, we had the trifecta: Ty Lopez, Grant Cardone, Dan Lok. So I was with the Asian one. The Hispanic one, a white one, and an Asian one. I picked the Asian one.
You know what phrase comes to mind as you say that? Apple's famous quote, about the crazy ones, right? But then he says you can hate them, you can love them, but one thing you can never do is ignore them. And that's for those 3 guys. Is a lot of people hate or love them, but you can't ignore these guys.
You gotta respect what they've done. At Dan's company, we did $40 million in a single year, and I was running the sales team, 110 guys and girls, right? Guys and girls, and we crushed it that year, And even after that, we were doing 8-figure years. And so my team has definitely put up big numbers. That's just selling info and coaching. And keep in mind, we weren't even selling like high ticket back then, right? We were selling a $2,500 program. So we sold over 10,000 of those to make $50 million, right? In that
That's a lot of
four or
sales.
five, yeah.
And what percentage of that was like on a call versus someone just checking out on the page by itself?
Probably about 50%. No, probably more than that. I would say it got to the point where it's about 60% over the year. 60% was phone or Zoom.
So if you were to like, I doubt that you're going to have a number off the top of your head, but if you were to estimate how many sales calls you've been on in your career, what would that estimate be?
I've done a few thousand for sure.
You're like like an online Jehovah's Witness, pretty much, you know, like.
Yeah, like I've definitely personally done a few thousand. My team combined, we've done tens of thousands, maybe even 30,000, 40,000. So there's a lot of sales calls. Now, keep in mind, there's something cool. We actually started on one of these devices, right? On one of these things called a phone. And then we switched to Zoom. So then we went on a computer and we did really fancy video sales like this, which is a lot better because we get to unlock tonality. We get to unlock more tonality, get on the phone, but we get to unlock facial expressions, body language, and that helped us sell so much more. Yeah, no idea.
Now, everybody listening to this show, there's a theme, which is content capitalism. How do we take content and monetize that? Now, one thing I know Dan Lok did expertly was actually really blow up on the internet with video, like YouTube. He was everywhere, every single platform that was relevant back then. And I want you to talk to me a bit about how that online persona, the video content, translated into more sales, whether it's reducing friction or generating leads or actually just running ads straight to landing pages. Tell me about his content plan and like what if I know you were in the sales department, but I'm also pretty sure you know what's going on in the content creation stage that brought the leads to you, right?
Yeah, I remember vividly. I remember now I live in Vancouver, Canada, but I remember when I didn't live in Canada and when I would fly up to Canada for team meetings and stuff like that. I remember Dan literally having a videographer or two by his side like 24/7. He was like a content machine. He would have like a Friday and a Wednesday just doing content, but then when he was working, he would also be filmed. So the amount of content and repurposing that went online was just insane. How it contributed to sales, I mean, we had people coming on and literally saying things like, I don't know who this Dan guy is, but I see him everywhere. So I want to learn more what he does, right? So literally it helped drastically. And obviously, when you are everywhere, your omnipresence, right? Grant Cardone talks about omnipresence. I think a lot of people talk omnipresence. I mean, you don't have to be the best, right, at what you do when you are the loudest, right? And I think that's something a lot of us entrepreneurs, marketers, we sometimes we get caught up. We're like, we want to be the best at our craft, and I get that. But there's also a lot of power that comes to being the loudest in what you do. And maybe you're not the best, but the market doesn't care because you're the loudest.
Could you think of like a tipping point where he realized like, hey, this content thing is my ticket to getting to the tens of millions, and then he ramped it up and brought the whole content creation team and stuff. Like what triggered that? Do you remember, or were you even around with him when it happened?
I was with Dan when his YouTube channel was 100,000 maybe.
That's very respectable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting to 100K. And I was there for the whole year when we went from 100K to 1 million in 12 months, less than 12 months, right, on YouTube. And that was the year that Dan realized, like, content is king. Because as he was growing organic sales was insane. Now, keep in mind, we did something really cool. We had on our YouTube, you know how YouTube videos, in the description, you can put whatever thing you want to pitch or sell, your funnel link, anything, right? We would obviously track a specific funnel just for YouTube. And no joke, YouTube pulled in multiple 7 figures, probably 8 figures in sales alone, just from YouTube. So
and this
that goes to
is
show you
organic YouTube or organic plus paid?
Organic YouTube, no paid.
Wow.
Here's the crazy thing. We were getting paid multiple 5 figures a month from AdSense. Multiple 5 figures, okay? Our sales from organic were multiple 6 figures a month. So our sales from high ticket destroyed our AdSense revenue coming in. We made so much more money from that.
Got it. Got it. So you had it dialed in. So the description would take them down a funnel that would nurture, educate them, and then eventually either by themselves or have a call with someone like you, right?
A book call, correct.
Got it. Got it. So, uh, how like do you have any idea like what he was coming up with the content from? Was it from I saw a lot of the stuff. A lot of it was really interesting. Where's he getting it from? Is it from the comments below? Is it from just his brain? Is it from books he read? I also noticed that he takes really great knowledge from other sources, and then he just puts his own little spin on it.
Yeah, he's an avid reader, so a lot of stuff came from reading books. He reads a lot of books. He also studies a lot of people, right? He buys their courses, he dissects them over a weekend, definitely reads comments, So I would say a combination of all the things you mentioned.
hmm And was it him making the content plan, or did he have a whole content team?
He actually
Like,
made the content plan in the
okay,
beginning. In
yeah.
the beginning.
hmm
And then when he had other responsibilities, he wanted to diversify to do different things. Then he had a content manager, social media planner. Yeah.
Makes sense. So I love that. Well, in your perspective, from your you're in the sales end of things, right? How do you think things would have been different if he wasn't running organic content on all his channels? Like, let's just say he's just doing ads pushed to a funnel that ends up on a call with you, like, and you're on the other end of that call. Like, hypothetically, what would be different?
It would have been definitely, I would say, quote unquote, harder to close, right? Only because when you're omnipresent, you build a lot of trust in the marketplace. You're just being everywhere every time. It's kind of like why do big enterprise companies pay for ads on TV in the cinema, right? When you watch a movie, why do they play like 5 ads before your movie? Even though you're not gonna go and click on Coca, you're not gonna go and well, Coca-Cola is different because you probably buy Coke at the cinema.
You can
But
find
let's
it
say
everywhere. Yeah.
right. But let's say you saw an ad on a bank, a local bank, and you're like, why? I'm not even gonna go to this bank. But what we don't realize, psychology, is that the more times we see something, we naturally associate that thing to be good, or it's the first thing we think about. So
Or at
that's the
least
same effect.
familiar, right?
Familiarity, exactly. And that's the same effect that Dan's content had on organic. He was everywhere. So even though people might have seen him maybe 6 months ago, they still associated him with somebody who was, powerful and wealthy, right? And that helped us a lot on our sales calls, for sure.
Absolutely amazing. Now, let's go into a little bit of how you got into this game. Do you remember the first time you got on a call, whether you sold something or not? Like, tell me about your initiation into actually being a sales guy. What were you selling? How did it go? And I think that a lot of people, especially in the services industry, they're scared of getting on calls uh, with prospects. So I want people who may not be where you are, having done $40 million a year in sales, to kind of understand that, hey, we all come from the same place. So tell us your story of the first sales call you remember being on.
Yeah. It's actually funny you brought this up because I was speaking at a client's event in Tucson last weekend, last Saturday.
I saw
And
the
at that
photos. It
event,
was
I
good stuff, man.
played my one of my first ever call recordings, or I guess a practice call recording, but it was still a call recording of me in 2018 doing sales for the first time. It was so cringe, but the audience loved it because they literally saw that I was so bad, and now I'm here, and then they could do the same too, right? So that
Joel,
was
I want
really
you to do me
cool.
a favor. For the
Yeah,
sake
play
of the
that.
people listening to this podcast, could you send that file to me later so my editors can edit it in, at least this portion of it? Would you be okay
Yeah.
with that?
Yeah, I would definitely send you that file. You don't have
Okay.
to play the whole 3 minutes. Just play
No,
like the
we
first
won't. We'll
20,
just
20 seconds.
we'll just get the cringiest parts and
Yeah, it's just the
cut that
first.
in.
Like I had no tonality. I literally was reading off a script. I had no confidence in what I was saying. Yeah, you'll listen to it. It's hilarious.
Hello, Dr. Jeff. This is Joel with Dreamers Agency. How are you? I'm always good, Dr. Jeff. Listen, I want to get straight into this. I don't want to waste your time. I understand you're a busy guy, and so am I. Let me start off by telling you a little bit about my company. Listen, Dr. Jeff, I've been in marketing for many years. I've had a lot of success. We specialize in lead generation. And before you get all worried, because you're probably thinking you get 100 emails a week about this, let me tell you what separates my company from all the competitors. 1, we guarantee results. If we don't get you exactly what it is you want, we're going to give you a full refund. No questions asked. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're wanting 50 appointments, and we bring you 49 on the 29th day, and you still haven't hit that 50 number. I'm going to give you 100% money back guarantee.
Okay, here's a story. I bought Dan's course, Dan Lok himself, $2,500. I paid for the high ticket closer program, how to become an online sales guy and make a 6-figure work from home thing, right? Which was the dream. I remember I bought that course and I was like, dang, like I took a credit card, right? Money I didn't have. I swiped $2,500. I had no job back then because I just graduated college. I had no money, no income coming in. I was like, okay, this has to work. So what I did was I was applying to all these like ads online that were looking for salespeople, but I didn't know at the time they had me doing cold calling, right? I didn't even know what cold calling was. I was just like, oh, it's a sales position. All right, let me do it. So it was so bad because I remember I would wake up hating the phone. Like you said, I will wake up being afraid of my day, like hating my life. It's like, oh my God, I'm gonna get yelled at, I'm gonna get hung up on, I'm gonna get cussed at, and it happened so many times. But I'm very thankful I did that. That was before I got really good at sales and I made my first 100K a year, right, in the first 12 months. But initially, it was just that grind of just getting rejected over and over again.
And how long did it take to get to the point where you didn't hate your day and every no wasn't as painful? Like, was there a certain threshold you remember?
Exactly 7.5 months from start to 7.5 months. That's when I was like, oh, I think I'm pretty good at this stuff. Okay, and then that's when I felt more natural,
And
right?
what were
Like
you selling in that cold calling position?
Yeah, so cold calling was initially I was selling leads to real estate brokers. Oh my gosh, such a saturated market even today. Selling leads. Then I sold an Amazon software called Rank Brain by a company called Profit Phoenix. How to get your Amazon product on page 1. I sold fitness coaching products.
So is this through one agency selling all these things?
Actually, no, I jumped around from different employer to employer.
Okay. And this is using what you learned with Dan Lok?
I just applied on jobs online on Indeed, Monster.com. I think back then there was LinkedIn Jobs. I got an agency too who got me on a few offers like the textbook arbitrage, how to make money with textbooks online. So I did get to an agency. But I actually found my home when I was brought into Dan's company. Dan finally saw that I was good enough after going through all those trials that I could get a job at his team, right, to sell what he sold. Now that was it for me. Then I got really good after that point, right?
Got it. Okay. So up until then, do you remember how much money you were making in your sales positions?
Well, like I said, when I graduated college, I was making zero. I had, what, 50,000 in debt from loans and student loans and family loans and stuff like that. Maybe 50K, something like that. Making zero income. First couple months, I made nothing. Then I started making 1,000 a month, 2,000 a month. Then I started making 5K a month, 7K, 8K, 10K, 15, 20, 25. So then it just went on after that point, right? But it was definitely a progression. It wasn't like month 3, 4, 5, 6. It was like 3 months of struggle, another 2 months of less struggle, but still struggle. And then slowly it got better. And then obviously there was the ups and downs, right? Go from like 10K a month to like 5K a month, like 20K. Then there was also that I had to learn how to stabilize and be consistent too.
Okay, got it. So this was all a part of like the stages that you were going through before getting put into Dan Lok's company with him, right?
Yeah, so I started hitting my 5-figure commission month, like over 10K when I was at Dan's company. So before that, I had not hit a 10K a month.
Now, I wanted us to rewind a little bit. The first sale that you closed on the phone, what was it? What was your commission?
It was a $2,000 product. It was for the Rank Brain Amazon software. It was hilarious actually, because that call, I still remember the lady at the end of the call. She literally told me, she said, um, like, I don't mean to be rude, but I think you don't have to read off your script so much. I think she felt
She's
pity
so
for me.
kind. That's such
Yeah,
a kind person.
she felt pity for me. She bought for me, and she was like, you don't have to read off a script. I think, just be more natural. And I was like, I was so happy, right, that I closed my first $2,000 deal. I made 10%, so I made $200. But it was hilarious because, again, the lady was giving me feedback, and I was just like posting in the Facebook group, like, oh my god, I made my first sale. Um, yeah, thinking of that memory is actually funny, and it's very it brings back a lot of good memories, right, of how far I've come.
Yeah. The thing is that my first sale online was, I think, was when I made during COVID when I was doing my agency work. That kind of went on pause because I couldn't travel and shoot stuff. So I made my coaching program, and then I'd never sold on the phone before. People always came to me. Now I'm just like, shit, I got to sort this out. And I just organically reached out and made a few posts. Hey, I'm doing this coaching program if you want to learn how to make video. And I was selling the program for $3,000. And I'd never done sales calls before. And I'm in my, late 30s by this time. I'm just like, what I feel like an idiot. I'm asking for money on the phone from strangers. But I'll tell you what, that first sale I closed is like more like that $3,000 means more to me than like $1 million I made the next year and stuff. So like $200, that's meaningful because that means this works. And now I got the energy to keep going because I've proven that the formula works.
Exactly. And that was my first sale, man, back in 2018, back in June or July.
Yeah, you should actually find that lady and ring her up and say thank you for the feedback and look where I am now. Like
I know, right? I know.
make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So tell me about now you're working for Dan Lok. You're selling these programs, and I know that you eventually went to actually build a pretty sizable sales team. Let's talk about that. What kind of numbers were you tracking, and how are you trending there?
So, like I said, I guess it's not even a funny story. It's probably a sad story. Um, but I was given the position of sales director because Dan was kind of like running out of options, and he saw potential in me, but I was kind of young, right? I was like 22, 23 or something like that back then. And he was firing the previous sales director because of poor performance, right? We came off a really hot year, and we went to a few quarters where sales was really bad back in 2019. This was just before COVID in 2020. And so in 2019, I remember in October, I think it was October 2019, Dan was like, hey, Joel, um, I'm going to give you a chance to be sales director, but if you don't hit a certain sales target, I think it was like 5 million that quarter or something like that, and then I will have to let you go and find somebody else. Now, obviously, I would say yes to the opportunity, right? Like, why wouldn't you? I was young, I was adventurous. But the thing is, I basically inherited a team that was low on morale, lead volume was slow coming in, lead quality, they were always complaining about poor leads, poor leads, poor leads. And I was really just scratching my head. Like halfway through the quarter, I was like, this is not working. I might as well just quit now before he fires me. Let me just resign. And before I answer your question of what we're looking for tracking, because this is important. That's the night when I went into our CRM HubSpot, right? HubSpot. Now, before that, because I was only a closer, I hadn't got promoted yet, I couldn't see all the leads in our CRM. But when I became a sales director, I could see the whole company. And I realized we had 1 million leads. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. If we have 1 million leads, but we're struggling for sales, what's going on? So I went to look at the marketing department. What were they doing? Well, the daily emails were not working. They're not converting. They're going to spam. The domain reputation is going bad. So what I did was I took sales professionals, my closers, I took like 5 of them. I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to write very personalized emails, texts, voicemail, make some calls, and let's hit all these dead leads. And that's actually how I created my offer, my new program called Sales Farming. And it started there because we made over 7 figures for Dan from dead leads. And the reason I kept my job is not because I hit that 5 million target. I actually missed that by quite a bit, but it's because Dan saw the innovation, how I put money in his pocket when he basically wasn't able to. He would not have made that money. But in terms of what metrics we tracked, as sales director, I looked at obviously conversion rates, right? Show up rates, but also the outbound activities, number of outbound calls, number of emails, number of text messages. I looked at the conversion cycles. I looked at the speed, the sales cycle, the speed to lead. Speed to lead would be as soon as a new lead comes in, how fast do we engage that lead, right? I looked at cash collected, what percentage of the sales were payment plans, what percentage were paid in fulls. So those were some of the metrics that we monitored and we analyzed and we tried to optimize for.
Got it. And so you didn't hit the 5 million, but
I think we hit like 3 point something, or
so that means like a third of that just came from your own lead pool without having to buy ads, right? You didn't have to buy leads for those guys because they're already in your system.
Yeah, those were existing leads that the company would not have made. And the crazy thing is too, is like people don't realize that your leads are not really your leads because they're probably in other competitors' list too. So if you don't sell your leads first, your competition will sell your leads. So there's even a more urgency to revive them as soon as possible, right? And so that's like a big thing that we crushed at getting sales fast.
Amazing. Okay, so you put out a big number earlier, 40 million in 1 year. Now, I think a lot of people who are in the coaching space or in the information space or in the training space, which all kind of nowadays it seems to be all kind of muddled together, which is fine. But a lot of people would kill to hit numbers like that. Now, tell me about how you went from 3 million a quarter to hitting 40 million in a year. Like what was, in your opinion, the thing that tipped the scale to crushing those numbers? So if we look at 40 million a year, that's like average 10 million a quarter, right? That's a big jump from 3 million a quarter.
Yeah, definitely a big organic like push, right, with content. Definitely that helped tremendously. And keep in mind, we were paying Mark Zuckerberg $1 million a month on paid ads too. So a combination of paid ads, organic, right timing in the market, just a lot of good testimonials, right, that we could promote. A strong sales team, obviously, because it takes marketing and sales both, right, to make those numbers. So yeah, I think that was the winning combo, man. All factor of all those.
I'm just thinking about like if my credit card was getting hit with $1 million a month, like that would be like what, the white Amex or the black Amex? You need the black Amex.
That'd be the
right?
black Centurion card. Yeah, so I think
you
like
need
250K a year or no, something like that.
yeah. I used to run events here in Japan, and we do large marketing campaigns. But when it got to the bigger numbers, they're just like, "Hey, we're gonna need a wire deposit." I was just like, "Why? What's wrong with my card?" And then I realized, oh, there's a limit. We can't. My I think at the time I had a platinum Amex, but they wouldn't let me charge it to the card. So that was a thing. Okay, cool. So how long did that take from when you did that quarter with Dan, where he said, "Hey, you got to get to this number." You hit 3 million, but he was still happy with you. From there to scaling up to that 40 million a year mark, what was that time frame?
That was the next year. So
Dude,
that was like the next year.
That's fast growth.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a lot of things just kind of clicked between your coming into the leadership role. Did you hire a lot of salespeople?
Yes.
So were you also the hiring manager for sales? Is that right?
Oh, 1000%. As sales director, as sales director, I had sales managers under me, but we ran huge recruiting campaigns. Like we would do a recruiting group interview almost every week, right, at points.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, were these guys from your customer base or were you looking somewhere else?
Yeah, in the beginning, like 95% of people were from our clients, our students. And then over time, we started bringing in outside people, but we still put them through our training program just so they get the culture, right? And what we taught and what we sold. But yes, and then the way we would run these recruiting campaigns or I call them recruiting. I guess call them recruiting campaigns. We would have a Slack channel. We would invite all the candidates who apply to the channel, and then we would stress test them stress test them with a bunch of different obstacles. For example, step 1 is to do a basic English exam online, right? Take this test, drop your results in Slack. Probably 20% of people would not do it. Kicked out, done. Next test, go to HubSpot.com, register for an account, sign up for the academy, and finish this certificate in like 3 days. Half of the people would not do it. Kicked out. Next thing, right? It's on and on and on, and we interview.
So they self-filter themselves out.
Exactly. We wanted the hungriest people, right? The ones that wanted to make money, the ones that were coachable, the ones that were not willing to put in, the ones that were not afraid of being uncomfortable.
Got it. And then eventually they got on a call with you.
Eventually, then they got interviewed by my managers. And after that, they got interviewed by me. And then we hired them. And then it's not done yet. We had like a 90-day probation where in the first month they had to make, X amount of calls, sell X amount of dollars. So it was not over. Like the recruiting was just the beginning, right? Yeah. It went on from there all the way to 90-day probation.
What was so attractive about this position that you got that many applicants? Like what did you send out an email blast saying, hey, this is like what our average sales guy is making? And
So honestly, this is one of those things where it's like, it's definitely manipulation, right? Because look, the truth is marketing and sales is manipulation. And I think manipulation isn't a bad or a good thing. It's just how you use it. You can use it for good, you can use it for evil. So that's one of the things where, because we sold a program called the high ticket closer, you can become a high ticket closer, you can make money online. When you then also hire people and then say to them, then you turn around and you say to the market, hey, I'm hiring people, right, like you, but pay for my course. Now, obviously that worked in some kind of weird triangle, right? It works like you sell to them, you hire them, then you promote externally. It's like a triangle. And so that's how we got so many people, right? That's kind of like a hack that I guess we did.
it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy a bit, right?
Self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, pay me for this, I'll hire you, and then let's sell more people to get to do what you did, kind of thing. Yeah. But it wasn't an MLM though. It wasn't a pyramid scheme. We didn't have any tiers. It was just straight sales.
Mm-hmm. Straight sales. Now, I once hired Jordan Belfort to come to speak to my audience here in Japan. Short story, he didn't show up, and like it took me 2 years to refund every one of those. I think there's like 2,000 people. Anyhow, that's another story for another podcast. But one of the famous things he does at his live events, which he was going to do in Japan, and we had talked about everything, is he goes up to someone in the audience and say, "Sell me this pen." Now, I would love to have, let's just say, maximum 5 minutes role play with you. If I'm like, I'm interested in, I'll play the role of, let's say, a 19-year-old kid out of college. I'm looking for career opportunity. You're selling me Dan Lok's program. And I really want to hear what this would be like if I got on the call. Is that cool with you?
Yeah, dude, I got the easy. I got like I think I have the most savage closes.
Okay,
ever,
so let's do this. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Ring, ring.
Yeah, let's do it. Hey Ken, good to meet you, man. You say you're 19?
Yeah. Just turned 19 last week.
Okay. Well, did you just finish high school? Are you in college or where are you at?
Well, actually, I just enrolled in college, and it kind of sucks. I've got a major in philosophy, but I don't know if I want to continue.
Okay. Look, the truth is, I don't know if you're even a good fit for our programs yet. Can you tell me just quickly, why are you even here with me right now? Like, what made you want to jump on this call so badly today?
So I just saw like this video of Dan Lok, and anyhow, in there he's just talking about how much, on average, like the people who work with him make, and I'm looking at, I don't even know if it's real, if it's bullshit, but it sounds like a lot more than I'd make in my philosophy major. So I'm seriously thinking maybe I should learn this.
How much does an average philosopher make a year? Like, I'm just curious, right? If you were to go get a job after college, how much would you make?
So with my philosophy major, I might become like a teacher, and work, starts at around 50 grand a year, and after like 10 years, I might be making like 100 grand or so, like just average across the board.
Okay. If I could show you that, I could do some math with you right now and show you that you can make 100 grand in the next 12 months whilst you being in college, potentially, right? Would you be interested if we did some math together?
Yeah, I would, but if that's not guaranteed like a salary, right?
Of course. Depends on your skill, but that's what we teach you in our program, right? We give you the skills, we equip you, and then you have to obviously implement, right? But I just show you a quick math that we can understand what we do and why we do what we do, right? Okay, so are you familiar with any programs online? Have you seen any, ads on Facebook that are selling you maybe relationship coaching or fitness
Oh yeah,
coaching,
that's
lose
all
weight? Have
over
you
my
seen those
feed.
things?
Like just a
Okay.
bunch of ads saying, all these training
Do
program
you
stuff.
do you know how much those programs cost?
Um, I kind of dabbled a bit. Some of them are like they say
Yeah.
like $35, and some of them, like they force you to get on a call, kind of like we're doing right now. So I don't
Correct.
know.
Correct.
Yeah.
So they sell what we call high ticket. They sell things from 2K to 5K to 10K, even 25, even 50K, even 100K
Hmm.
services, right? Now, you just mentioned you saw a lot of these guys selling their courses.
Yeah.
That means there's a lot of opportunities for people like yourself and myself. If we're good at sales, we can go work with them and help them make money so we make money. So I'll give you some average, just basic math, simple math. Let's say, right, in the beginning, we're not so great at closing because we just learned, let's say you're in a program for 3 months, okay? You just started doing sales. Let's say you could close a $5,000 program, okay? A 5K program. Now, you're in college, right? So how many hours a day could you take sales calls? Could you do 5 calls a day, 6 calls a day if you wanted to make money?
I mean, will they be on my calendar, or do I have to go
That
for?
will be in your calendar,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, 5 or 6. I mean, how long
Okay.
is a call? Like half an hour or something?
45 minutes,
45.
an hour. You can do it half an hour too if you're good, if you're fast.
Yeah, I could do that.
Okay, let's just say 6 calls. Keep it simple. 6 calls, an hour a call. Um, and your influencer, in this case, your expert, he books those calls to your calendar. Let's say you take 6 calls today. In a single week, if you didn't take weekends off, you would do, 30 calls, right? 30 calls a week, 30 to 35,
Hmm.
right? 6 times 5, 30 calls. Let's say you closed 30%.
Is that normal?
30% of
30%?
yeah,
Okay.
30%. Exactly. Now that's if you're starting out, you might start at 10%, let's say 10, 20. So let's use 20%. We'll use
Okay.
20% as average. Good closers will close at 40, 50%.
Okay.
So 20% of 30 calls. What is that number? How many sales is that?
That's 6.
Let's do some quick math. It's 6 sales, right?
Yep.
Okay. And you do that for a single month. That's 4 weeks in a month. 6 times 4, 24 sales.
Okay.
If you sold a $5,000 offer, they'll typically pay you 10% commission. So that's 500. That in itself is $12,000 a month,
Okay.
right? So if you're good, right, at these numbers, you can make 12K a month.
Okay.
So what would that be compared to your degree, right? If you went out to school, you spent 4 years in school, you get a philosophy degree.
Screw my degree.
Right.
Like I just do that. But how do I know
Exactly.
that like I can reach those numbers? Like, like I've
Well,
never done sales
you
before.
absolutely. So have you ever seen interviews? Have you ever seen the most successful, ultra wealthy, ultra rich people when people ask them, if you lost everything or you had to start your life over from scratch, what is the number one job you do? Have you seen those interviews? Like
Um,
Damon John.
no, haven't seen them.
Okay. Well, the number one skill to make the most money in a short amount of time is sales.
Hmm.
I'm not being biased about it, but let's think of it logically. If you can walk into a company and make them millions of dollars, wouldn't they be incentivized to pay you more money
Of course.
because of the skill that you had, right?
Yeah.
So ultimately, the question is, how fast can you get good at sales? That really determines how much money you make. So I guess my question for you, Ken, is how quickly do you want to make 100, 200K a year? Do you want to do it this year? Or you want to do it in 5 to 10 years?
Well, I'd rather do it sooner, of course.
Okay.
How long
So
would
if
it
I
take
let
me
you
to
in,
get like good enough to do that though?
so our program is 8 weeks long.
Okay.
8 weeks long. You do daily role plays, which means practice. And most of our students, they get good in about 2 to 3 months.
Hmm.
So if I was to let you in today, right? If you were a good fit, you're coachable, you're an action taker, you're a good fit. If I let you in today, do you think you'd make the most of this opportunity to actually get good fast? Or would college and life get in the way? Or would you actually dedicate your time to mastering sales?
I think anything that I invest money in, then I'm gonna, I'm gonna get my money's worth. So yeah,
So
I'd do
with
it.
that mindset, do you think you'd be, if with that mindset that you had, right? Anything I invest in, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to make it work. Do you not think you'd be successful?
Yeah, I'd figure it out, dude. That's really good. Stepping out of character here. Like I was really trying hard to put myself in that position. Yeah, I would have bought it. You said 2.5. Yeah, Like even if I had to dip into whatever savings or borrow from my parents, I would have bought
Yeah.
it.
And we could handle objections for days too. I mean, like there's so many ways you could do it. It's like $2,500. It's like,
So this is like, do you listen to your team's calls and then say, hey,
mhm,
like you should have done this or that?
yep.
But how do you do that when you have 100+ employees?
So here's what you do, right? You have sales managers and sales leaders. So I had 10 sales leaders and 4 sales managers. So leaders could be reviewing their team's calls, and then I could be picking a few during the team meetings and then showing that to the whole group and doing coaching and doing training.
Got it. Got it. That's brilliant, man. Look, you don't need to say any more about your ability to sell because of the fact that, like, literally, if I was that person who I was playing, my credit card would be in my hand, I would have bought it, no question. 2,500, I could find it somewhere, even if I'm eating cup ramen for a year, you know. So, as you're going through this, you're getting these sales commissions. Do you do incentives like for the leaders in the teams and stuff like that?
Yes, we do. We gave obviously bonuses and overrides, right? So if our sales team could hit certain targets, they would make a bit more commission. If the leaders had their teams beat targets, we would give the leaders bonuses too. If the managers would hit targets, we'll give them. So like managers typically make 2 to 3% sales override, right? And then they could make additional bumps if their team hit certain targets.
Got it. Got it. Now, I know that if we talk about sales and the system and stuff, we could go for years because you've got years of experience. Let's go a little bit into like, what advice do you have for someone who, let's say, they look at Dan Lok, they're just like, I love the results he got, like cash wise, but I don't want to be him. Like, if you could turn back the clock, and I know Dan also, if he could turn back the clock, he'd probably say a few things differently. Now, what advice do you have for someone who wants to make those $40 million kind of years, but doesn't want to be remembered necessarily the same way as Dan Lok? They want to have a bit more of a clean, like more palatable, longer lasting brand. Because, like, what would you say? Let's turn back the clock.
I think I'm going through those exact shoes right now, right? Having won multiple 2 Comma Club awards, helping multiple companies get to 7 figures. I think like I'm going through that because I don't want a brand like Dan. I don't want to be a one-hit wonder and then crash right after a few years, right? And so I think the first question to ask yourself is why 40 million? Why even 10? Why even 1 million? Why even 100K a year? Because I guarantee you, Ken, most people don't know why they want to make what they want to make. They can't even tell you what they do exactly with that money. And I think that's a big red flag there because what happens, it means that you're making money for reasons that are probably egotistical and probably more narcissistic. It might be you're trying to impress your friends on social media. It might be, you're trying to do things that just deep down, it's not like okay, it's not I'm going to donate $20 million to charity for sure, guaranteed, right? I think people first have to understand why they want to make the money before they even make the money. That was my biggest flaw. It's like when I made money, I spent money fast. I bought the fancy stuff, I bought the big houses, I bought the nice cars. Why though? I think a lot of people, if they were the honest with themselves, a lot of it's ego. So if you don't want to be like Dan's brand, then the first question you got to ask yourself is, what are you doing this for? Is it for ego? Is it to help the world? Is it for your family? Like, what is it for? And this is true too. I think, Ken, you would agree with me. The more money you want to make, the more responsibilities and the more growth you have to go through and the more sacrifices you have to make too. Those things are directly correlated. Unless we're talking about selling drugs and just getting rich quick, that's a whole different story. But that's a big sacrifice if you just pimp drugs. But if
Yeah,
you were to
or
run a
OnlyFans,
big,
or whatever.
OnlyFans, what it's like, it's still a sacrifice. But if you were to run a big corporation, you want to have a 9-figure business. Do you understand the pain it takes to get to a 9-figure business? And it's perfectly fine to say, no, you know what? I don't want that. That lifestyle is not for me. I just want a lifestyle business that makes 10K a month. Good for you. Whatever makes you happy. So I think the advice I give is number one, understand why you want to make how much money you want to make. And number two, like ask yourself, do you understand the pain and the requirements it takes to get there and the time, right? And the time it takes. And then the third advice is, I believe in being ethical, right? I believe in actually getting people results. So I'm not saying that Dan didn't, But we had policies in Dan's company back then where we had like no refunds at all. Like no matter what, even if your parent was dying and you needed money for medical treatments, like no refunds, right? I have a very different approach. Like if I'm not doing a good job and I'm messing up, I will give a refund to my clients. If some emergencies come up, like I believe in more goodwill, more karma. I believe in God, right? Like I believe in God. So I believe in religion, and I believe in my faith, which is blessing people. So I hold a different approach too, but I also know that helps my brand and my reputation in a different way, right? Versus just being very strict on a no refund policy. So I think Dan would say that as well. I think the fact that we never give refunds, and then we had lawsuits, and then we had CoffeeZilla, and then we had people saying like Dan's a scammer, blah, blah, blah. Whether it's true or not, I think that could have been avoided if we actually just gave some refunds to people that were really upset, right? For example.
That makes so much sense. And there's a statistic about doctors that get sued, and it's not. They found, this is so weird. The doctors that get sued, that number doesn't correlate to how professional and good they are as a doctor, like making errors and actually getting the only correlation they could find is how much the patients liked the doctor. And I think Dan could have been a much more likable person if he actually took people's personal situations into consideration, and it would have not put a major dent in his revenue. Like there's always going to be like everybody, Apple, the biggest company in the world, they expect a certain amount of refunds. I think it's like a 6% of everything they sell comes back, and they just count that into their expenses. Not a big deal. And then he could have kept going for a long time. I think it's just people who dislike you will find reasons to want to sue you. And there was even a case, and you can look this up. There was a patient who was misdiagnosed in a hospital, and she was very upset, obviously, and it caused her some health problems. So she wanted to sue the doctor. Okay, that's very normal in the States. People do this all the time. And then they said, okay, so the lawyers start drafting up the lawsuit. And then they named the defendant. She goes, no, not that doctor. I want to sue the other doctor. And he goes, no, but that's the doctor that diagnosed you. And he goes, but he was nice. There was this other doctor. That guy was an asshole. And he goes, yeah, but he didn't do anything wrong. She goes,
Right.
I know, but I want to sue him. and it was just like, what the
Wow.
heck, And that's the degree that humans will, put up a fight and actually try to destroy you, not because you're doing something wrong, but because they don't like you. So being likable is so important.
Dude, likability is huge in sales too. A lot of times, and I realized this after a few years, is that people bought my stuff because they liked me. They didn't really care what they were, they didn't care what they were buying, but because they liked me, that helped them make that buying decision.
That's same as like Elon Musk, Andrew Tate, a lot of these guys who are, these big personalities online, just like Richard Branson, like cool, it's Richard Branson, I'll buy it, that's it. And Elon Musk, he's going to start something silly like make flamethrowers. I'll buy it, and it works. So 100% true. Now we got to wrap this up in a second, but you spoke very mission based about building a brand that you're going to be proud of long term, and what Dan or you are thinking about like differently. Now, if somebody's just getting started, let's say they don't have a team, they've got a great product or service to sell, but they don't have a team, they're solo, and they're thinking about like, what's the bare minimum I need to start making some money, and they're in services, whether it's coaching, agency, or something like that. Like, if that was you, what would you do? I know you said earlier you'd start with sales, so we've let's get the sales component in there. But aside from just directly going and selling,
here's what I would do, right? And I take this out the page of Alex Hormozi's, where he talks about irresistible offers, make offers so great people say stupid saying no. Like one of the first things I did when I launched my own company was I did services for free, quote unquote free, or until I get you results first, and then you pay me after I get your results. So if you're really confident with your skills, why not just offer what you do, like no risk up front? And then if they like it, then they pay you, or they pay you with a video testimonial, right? I know a lot of people who say things like, oh, never do things for free, right? And I get that. But I think if you're just starting out, you have zero credibility, zero social proof, no cash to run marketing ads, and just do it and then get payments and get better at it. Like what's the worst that's going to happen if you do something for free for somebody, if it was good? right? If it was good, the worst is that they might ghost you, but then you know that's who they are as a character. They're probably a bad person. But most people will be appreciative. They'll pay you or they'll give you a great video testimonial. And you can use that to make more sales then.
All right. I love that. I've done a lot of that myself, done a lot of spec work just to get my foot in the door. And it's worked. I closed a deal with somebody, and this was, I think I just worked 2 days and we did $120,000, and it was because I just downloaded some of their free videos off of YouTube, edited it to make it look a whole lot better, made ads, sent it to him and say, hey, free gift for you. He writes me back and says, why the hell did you do that? I'm just like, because I want your business. If you want more like that, then give me a call and we'll see how that works. I just knew how good we were. And then we ran their, creating all their social media creatives, ad creatives, everything. And even they hired us to come out and shoot a whole bunch of content for them. So, it actually does work. So I'm going to back you up 100% for that. Now, we're running out of time soon, but you mentioned something earlier that was really interesting about reviving dead leads. I know that you also have a service or a SaaS software that does that. Could you, for the sake of anybody listening right now, we've been talking for about an hour, and if anybody who is hearing this, obviously there was something about your story, something about something you taught that spoke to them, and that's why they're sticking around this long. Now they're going to want to hear your pitch on how they can revive their dead leads. And we're going to drop the links down below, but give us like the 1 minute version. What is this and what's it going to do for someone who's got a decent sized list?
Yeah, so I call this process sales farming. Like you said, it comes with a software called Harvest AI, right? When you farm, you get crops, you harvest the crops, the rewards, so Harvest AI. The AI component is because we have a chat GPT bot that actually books calls for you automatically within our software. So imagine instead of your team having to nurture conversations and try to book calls, you have chat GPT selling for you and booking calls for you, right? So that's really what that is with the software. And so we teach a strategy, automated voicemail drops, emails, and text messages with very specific kind of copy that gets people to respond at a high response rate. And it gets them back on the phone with you, wanting to learn more, wanting to talk to you about your services. And really, that's what it is in a nutshell.
That's simple. Now, what kind of platforms does this work on? Email, text, chat?
Yes, so we send out farming campaigns on text, emails, and voicemail. We are slowly incorporating social media like Instagram DMs and Facebook DMs. Everything everything is able to be done within our one platform, which makes it really simple to keep track of everything.
Okay. So guys, there's going to be links down below to learn more. And here's a lot of people have some weird feelings about AI, like, oh my God, AI is going to do this or that. Here's what I feel about AI. AI, when it comes to marketing by itself, is stupid. It's like asking, it's like it is a computer program, garbage in, garbage out. But AI with a human guiding and training it and actually shaping the way it behaves is the most powerful thing in the world for marketing. And if you're not doing it, then 100% your competitors are. So if you want to lose customers to your competitors, just, you can blow this thing off and think it's a fad. If you want those customers to come to you because you believe you could serve them best, then you should be looking at this program with Joel Yee. You should click the link below. You should check it out and make a decision for yourself if you want to, jump on the bandwagon or you want to just give all your customers to somebody else. That's how I feel about it. That's the honest truth. Joel is a friend of mine, but I'm not pitching him just because he's a friend of mine. It's because you got to figure out how to get on this AI bandwagon if you're not on it already.
Absolutely.
All right, Joel, we got to wrap this up. For everybody else who's listening, thank you for sticking around to the end. Joel, this was so entertaining to have you as a guest. I know I get excited when we talk about big numbers. I think the audience does too, but big numbers are not the goal. The goal is really how can you turn great content into money in the bank? That's why we call it the Content Capitalist. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time.